Okay, so I want to make this video because I know we have a lot of ELL students. Uh, we have ELL students every year, but we seem to have a lot this year. And I wanted to show you this cool little extension that I got the county to unblock. Uh, and I want to also show you how you can uh, download it and actually download it on a student account, which you'll see here I'm in my son's account to show you that it works in a student account and show them how to use it. And then every time they log into their account, whether it's at home or on another computer at school, the translating extension will be on their computer and they can use it anywhere, with any device that they sign in on. So the first thing we're going to do is search for the Translate extension. It's called Google One-Click Translate, but you can type that in, or you can type in Google Translate. They do have another Google Translate extension, but this one's a lot better. So I made sure that this was accessible on the Chromebooks so that the students could um, download it. And so you press add to Chrome and then you add the extension. And it only takes a moment for it to add. And the very first thing you want your student to do is to click on this little extension symbol, which looks like a little splat or a blob of some sort. So some people say it looks like a puzzle piece. I don't know what it is, but you want to find the extension and have them pin it so that it's always right here. And once the extension is downloaded, it's really cool. They just have to right click and press translate to Espanol. Now, I've downloaded this before, so it's like saved my information. So it's actually going to say translate to English. And what they need to do is go ahead and press it, because once they press it, this will show up. And this would say, English, and they would go ahead and press these little three dots, choose another language, and they would want to choose Spanish. So you can just type in SP instead of having to scroll around, or even just S, but SP will take them to Spanish, and then done. Now, once you set this, you don't have to set this again. It's just something that needs to be done initially. So we have set to Spanish, and now all they have to do is right click to translate pretty much the entire page of almost really any website. Now there's a few things they can't do, and I'm going to show you when it works and when it doesn't work. But for now, I also just want to show you that if they have it on Spanish and it needs to go back to English, this little symbol should be up here in the Omnibox, which is what this is called, and they can just toggle back over to English. Sometimes it says here unknown, and don't worry about that. It just means that the site information doesn't include that it's, the language or have any specific information that this can pick up as to what the actual language is. So it just says unknown, but you just click on whatever's over here to translate it back to the original language, and then you can click over here to translate it to the Spanish or whatever language that our ELL student might speak. So as you saw before, they had a pretty extensive list of languages. They pretty much have everything in here that you can think of. I mean, I'm sure there's some sort of obscure language, but they've got a lot. So if we get students who speak languages, other than Spanish, we can still accommodate them this way. So we want to go ahead and click done, and we can close that out, and this symbol still stays up here. So the next thing I'm going to show you is just sort of how this works and what it works on and what it does not work on. So I'm going to go ahead and go over here. This is my practice classroom, and forgive me because I'm not used to looking at this in a student view. I always look at this from my teacher view, but I added my son on here and I'm in his account. So the first thing I want to show you is just Google Classroom itself. All they have to do is right click. And I do want to say that on a Chromebook, they don't have a right click, so they actually need to, here I'll show you my keyboard shortcuts, and they need to press Alt and click, and then it'll pull up the right click menu that we would get on our computer by pressing a right click button. So this is pretty important to know in general. Alt plus click equals a right click on a Chromebook only. So make sure you show them that how they can right click. Alt, and then they click. They have to hold down Alt, and then they click, and then it pulls up that right click menu, and they can access Translate from there. Sometimes if they right click on certain things, it might not say Translate. They just need to really make sure that they right click sort of on the outside of the site, whatever the main body of the website is, and it should come up. Okay, so if they translate to Spanish, it translates the whole page. It's really cool. I mean, everything that they would need is translated. It doesn't translate the waffle, but it translates everything. It's just really super awesome. Um, I think you see already how useful a tool this is going to be for our students. And again, remember that you go back over to English if you need to go back to English. I would really encourage them to toggle back and forth, because looking at it in Spanish and looking at it in English and reading that is going to really, really help them become, more fluent and learn the English language. Okay, so something I want to show you as well is the things that work and the things that do not work. First off, we have uh, Google Docs. So something in Google Docs is going to actually translate. So any of the text in the body will actually translate. It's pretty cool. And let's see if this works, because it's kind of neat. Now, you might know this, but any Google Doc that you assign to your students, where each student gets a copy, when you open it up, you actually can type in there, like on their document, and they can see you typing on the document if they have it open. You can add comments, and that you can pretty much work on this at the same time in real time with a student or another teacher or anyone that you have shared the document with. So if you needed to write a note to a student or something like that, you could type and it'll actually translate it over like pretty much immediately. I don't know why it's not working right now, because it was working earlier. And of course it doesn't work when I'm making my videos, so let's see. Okay, whatever. Anyway, you can kind of see it sort of works. I don't know why it says it like that, because earlier when I did it, it worked perfectly and translated everything. But it works in theory, just not in practice at this moment in time. But that's still something that's good for you to know. So another thing is here I have a Google slide. So if I try to right click in the slide, there's no translate option here. If I right click out here, there's no translate option. If I right click up here, it says translate. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and so that you can see that pretty much everything on the page itself, like all the menu stuff and all the buttons and all of that, it translates over, but whatever's in the slide itself will not translate over. So unfortunately that doesn't work, but all the rest does, and it's still very helpful. And it's also really helpful just to remember that the point is that we are trying to help our students learn English as well. So they do need to be reading, and trying to read stuff in English. If they really, really don't understand what they're reading, they can always copy it, and they can copy and paste it into Google Translate like we would for a lot of things. And so there's always that if they need it. Okay, so moving on to the next thing that would be relevant would be Google Forms.
So let's say you have a Google Forms assessment or something like that. Sometimes this pops up on its own without you even having to right click. So if it does, they can translate it to Spanish and voila, your Google Forms is now in Spanish. So they can take their assessments and their tests and do assignments that are in Google Forms that you've made and written in English. Things might not always translate over perfectly, but it's pretty much, from what I understand, good enough to for them to be able to get the idea of what they're supposed to be doing. You could always have somebody that you know who speaks Spanish read it over, make sure that it makes sense. But the Google Translate is usually passable. All right, so this is to me just like really insanely cool and saves teachers so much time and work when you're trying to come up with resources for your students who are English language learners. So um, let's see if there was something else in here I wanted to show you guys. I had like a question um, in here. Let's see. I was showing some teachers how they could do bell ringers as questions. And so let's say you have a bell ringer as a question. Well, translate it over to Spanish, and your student can answer the question.
They might write it in Spanish, but then you can translate it over to English. So you want to probably, really be encouraging your students to write in English, but at least they'll understand what the question is. And they can, again, toggle back and forth so that that helps them really understand. Okay. Oops. Okay. And I have to translate it back into English so that I can read what I've got here. All right. So another thing I wanted to show you was that PDFs and stuff don't translate over either. So if you have a PDF or a document on a PDF, unfortunately, you cannot translate it. It's only going to translate on that page all of the stuff around it. It didn't even translate the title for me on this one, which sometimes it does. I know that I had another one where it did, so uh, I'm pretty sure. Okay, English. We've got workshop activities had a PDF attached to it, so you can see here again PDF. It doesn't translate the body of it, especially on something like this, because this is actually a PDF comprised of scanned images. So these are all pretty flat. You can't really isolate the text even to highlight. But see here, it did change the title of this one for the most part over to Spanish, but it's still helpful. It still, tells them the menu and stuff. So, and translate that back over to English. All right, now pretty much think I've shown you everything I want to show you in here, um, as far as what, how it works with Google Classroom. And I just wanted to show you, it also works with things like Focus, so they can translate and know what they're looking at here. And again, it might not translate everything. I'm not going to go into my son's Focus and show you all of that stuff and all his information, but whatever it does translate is still going to be helpful. Here was another example. If you want your student to, read something and it's a PDF, again, it's not going to translate. It's already set. I think, no, it just won't even let me translate here. It lets me, no, it won't even let me do it at all. But when you're looking at something like a No Fear Shakespeare um, website, or if you have, a website based text where it's not a PDF, then it will translate it. And that's actually, again, it's a really great tool for our students who are just learning English. So here you have, I again don't know how accurate all of this is because I don't speak Spanish, but I'm sure somebody could verify if this. All right, so the last thing that I want to show you guys is actually a capability of YouTube. It has nothing to do with the translating extension, but I think that this is something a lot of people don't realize, and it's a very simple way to accommodate our students who are English language learners. Any YouTube video that has closed caption capabilities, and you can tell because of what I have this little symbol right here, will also allow you to do an auto translate. So I'm going to go ahead and uh, click on the settings here, which is this little gear right here. And I'm going to go to subtitles and click that. And it's English, which is the auto-generated subtitle. You can choose Spanish as your language. And not all videos have this capability though. So sometimes it's just English and you don't see any of this other stuff. And so I'm just going to go ahead and show you what usually you see. I think because this is a Khan Academy video and it's so widely used that this is a setting that they've allowed here, or it's something that I haven't seen on most videos on YouTube. So you would go to auto translate and then choose your language from the menu, and it's gonna auto translate all of the subtitles here for a student. So I think this is a really powerful tool because they can listen to a video that's in English but be reading the Spanish subtitles and or whatever the subtitles in whatever language is their first language. And that's just such a good way to learn a language. And I think that not only do you need to show your students this so that they can access this themselves on any video that you might assign that has the subtitle capability, but you should also encourage them to watch the videos that are in Spanish and translate them to English in the subtitles. And that way, you know, that any type of opportunity that they have to do that, they're learning, you know, the language sort of both ways, like listening to English and then reading it in Spanish and listening to something in Spanish and reading it in English. Um, I think I want to go see if I can find a video. I know that I put a video in here. I'm going to look at this material here. Okay, so this was a video that I did, and I'm not sure that it has any subtitle capabilities. I know that some of my videos do, so I'm actually going to pause this for a moment and pull one of my videos up so that I can show you what the menu normally looks like. Okay, so here's a video that I made, and I enabled the closed caption uh, setting. So I'm going to go ahead and show you. Try to make this a little bigger for you to see. Okay, so it is playing and spelling my name terribly wrong. It's having a hard time with me doing this video, but I just kind of want to show you what it normally looks like. So if I go to the settings and then go to subtitles, see how it doesn't have all of those other options. All it has is English, so you just would want to go then to auto translate and pick the language from that menu, and it will then translate everything into the language that you choose. So hopefully this video has been helpful, and I really hope that you show your ELL students these things and make sure that you download this extension onto their computer. Remember, like I said, that anywhere they log into their account, they'll be able to access this. So it doesn't matter if they're at home or at school. If they have a computer at home, then they can sign in with Chrome and then sign in with their school information, and they can access the that extension. Um, and also from any computer that they log on to in school. So all you have to do is really set them up once. If you have any questions or if your students have any questions, please let me know. Remember, you can always email me, and I will do my best to help you. And if you know, need me to set your students up with this because you either, you know, don't have time or are having trouble doing it, just let me know and we can coordinate that. So Guernsey at columbiak12.com. All right, thank you for watching and happy translating.